Who doesn't love a good scary story? While Hollywood's machine churns out terrible horror movies relying on pop-up scares and cheap tricks, there lives a collection of truly terrifying stories right on the internet. Unlike the aforementioned horror movies, these scary stories, images, games, characters, and videos known as creepypastas don't rely on pop-up scares or even complex effects, for the most part. No. Creepypastas are a special kind of horror story that gets into your head, and rather than making you jump, they creep into your subconscious and mess with your mind. This is a list of what I believe to be the very best, the ones that are the most mind-blowing, the most unsettling, and the most bone-chilling. Time to set some ground rules. The creepypasta must have had its genesis on the internet. While it can be based on earlier stories and folklore, in order to be classified as a creepypasta, the story must be unique to the internet. Also, while they may be famous, excessively graphic creepypastas like Squidward's suicide will be left out. Sorry people, but I gotta keep it PG. Finally, I obviously couldn't have seen every single creepypasta, so if I leave out one of your favorites, remember that this is just my opinion. Oh, and warning, huge spoilers. Now let's get this bad boy started. To start this countdown off, we'll go with the shortest yet most open-ended creepypasta on this list, Mother's Call. Mother's Call is a very strange story which I admittedly had to think about for a second before I got it. Because it's so short, I'll just read it straight to you from the Creepypasta wiki. A young girl is playing in her bedroom when she hears her mother call to her from the kitchen, so she runs downstairs to meet her mother. As she's running through the hallway, the door to the cupboard under the stairs opens, and a hand reaches out and pulls her in. It's her mother. She whispers to her child, "Don't go into the kitchen. I heard it too." This story originated from 4chan, and while not exactly scary, it's certainly one of the more unsettling ones. The possibilities for what could have been in the kitchen just makes your mind wander. Was it an imposter? Was it a spirit? What were its intentions? Was it trying to steal the girl? Was it even evil? Who knows? But like any great story, it leaves the reader with many different interpretations. You remember the good old days of Pokemon when there were 3 games, they were all on Game Boy, and there were a measly 150 Pokemon, 151 if you count Mew. Well, there's a legendary bootleg copy of the original game known as Pokemon Black version. You know, before Nintendo actually made Pokemon Black for the DS. It was remade as a Fire Red hack, which is what you're seeing now. Anyhow, in the game you can either start off normally, or take control of the famous ghost from Lavender Town in the official games. If you do the latter, the ghost essentially makes all the other Pokemon in the battles disappear using its one and only attack, Curse. You can even take it a step further and use Curse on the trainer, making his or her sprite disappear. Even more disturbing, after you beat the game, everybody will be gone, leaving you to wander aimlessly. If you go back to Pallet Town where you started, you'll be forced to see every Pokemon and trainer you've ever cursed. At the end of this, you'll be forced to fight Ghost, where you will be cursed and the screen will go black. This creepypasta combines 2 things that are particularly creepy against you. First off, it uses your childhood against you. We all remember Pokemon. You played Pokemon, your parents played Pokemon, even your great-granddad played him some Pokemon back in the day. But to see it all used to screw with your head can be really unsettling. Second, this one uses guilt against you. In the end, it's far more disturbing when you feel you deserve what's coming to you. That's what makes this creepypasta so great. It lets you abuse power and then turns all of it against you. Now let me ask you the question, would you do the same? Number 8 is a mysterious mythical image known as smile.jpg, otherwise known as smile.dog. According to the legend, a woman began having serious nightmares and paranoia after receiving an image from a floppy disk in 1992. Since then, hundreds have been exposed to the image, and they've all had similar symptoms such as paranoia, chronic nightmares, and insanity. The picture is said to be a grisly image of a dog, most likely a Siberian husky, completely shrouded in darkness other than the camera flash, with a smile on its face with human-like teeth. The only other object that can be seen is a human hand, which seems to be beckoning it. According to the legend, the images you're seeing right now are merely recreations, and thankfully don't have the same effects as the actual picture, which has no confirmed copies on the internet. The creepiest thing about this image is that when it appears in the victim's nightmares, it demands that they spread the word, almost as if this image were a virus, and that spreading the picture is the only way to escape the nightmares. All that can be said about this creepypasta is how ominous it is. The idea that there exists an image where merely viewing it causes paranoia is pretty disturbing. More importantly, it's as if it were the ultimate form of spam or malicious download, as though it were a computer virus that spreads to the user, allowing people to ruin lives at whim. The image itself is quite intimidating, and the fear of getting the real image is always present, whether or not you believe in it. Death by trolling, people. This next story is simply known as The Statue. Two parents, neither of whose names we know, decide to hire a babysitter for the kids when they go out. Because the children were already asleep, the babysitter figures that she'll watch TV, though she can only watch it in the parents' bedroom because no other TVs in the house had cable. As she sits down to watch TV in the parents' bedroom, she's startled by a very creepy statue of an angel near the window. When she calls the parents, asking if she can cover up the statue as it was creeping her out, the phone line was silent for a second, and the father, who was talking to the babysitter at the same time, said, "Take the children and get out of the house. We'll call the police. We don't own an angel statue." The police arrived in 3 minutes and found no survivors. No statue was found. I can see myself telling this story near a campfire, terrifying kids to make sure they get no sleep that night. It's just so simple yet effective that it must be appreciated. The ending is so sudden and unexpected that it really throws a lot of us off. The symbolism for the statue of an angel can be really deep and leaves a lot of room for interpretation. And of course, it uses the old babysitter scenario that we're all so familiar with from movies like Halloween. There's just something classic about this kind of open-ended scary story that really seems like it was made to be retold. How could I leave this out? This next one is on here for being both creepy and at the same time freaking hilarious. We all know the bronies. Dear God, do we all know the bronies. For those of you who need to stay inside more, long story short, there's an unusually large amount of adolescents and young adult males who watch the latest generation of My Little Pony. Anyhow, someone decided to mess with these guys a bit by creating the next entry, the Luna game. This is what appears to be a mediocre fan-made platforming game, but remember what I said about jump scares? Yeah. After about 20 seconds of gameplay, you're greeted to one of several really unsettling images while creepy audio plays in the background. I don't know if I should be laughing or crying right now. Oh, and good luck closing this out. It's forced to the front, so you can't even see the task manager if you try to close it that way. After a good minute of this, the game finally closes on its own, but the fun has only just started. We've still got 6 to go. Luna Game 2 through 5, Luna Game 0, and Luna Game End. Each game gets more complex and more psychologically damaging. I don't even know where to start with these games. They're jump scare hilarity for the whole family. Beyond that, they actually do get a good scare out of you, mostly due to how the later games become more complex in their mind games. They evolve from a simple jump scare to really getting in your head, as a good horror story should. The best part of these games is that they're like haunted games that you can download and play anytime. Because you're forced to keep playing, it really does feel like you're in your own horror story, as absurd and hilarious as it is. It really brings in a sense of fun to creepypastas that's too often forgotten. This next one is probably the most realistic and believable creepypasta on this entire list. Simply known as 1999, this story follows a Canadian blogger named Elliot as he tracks down the meaning of a certain mysterious TV channel that he watched while he was growing up. He remembers it being extremely sketchy, and in hindsight, he realized that it was most likely run by a local predator. As he continues to investigate, he learns that the man running the channel was actually attempting to lure children toward his house for sacrificial purposes. While I won't spoil the ending for you, I'll just say that this is something you'll never forget. What must be said about this creepypasta is its realism and urban legend type tone. We all know that legend that the kids at school told you about. I personally remember being told that a witch lived right by my elementary school, through the woods, but I digress. It also exploits several of our fears, such as that of cults and, of course, creepers. The reason the story works so well is because it combines what we feared as kids with what we fear as adults. As kids, we feared the cult activities, the supernatural elements, and the urban legend aspect of it. As adults, we fear this kind of person preying on children, especially via TV, where they're often unsupervised. It also utilizes the old local TV station scenario seen in many other creepypastas. Speaking of which, this next one is simply known as Where Bad Kids Go. According to a certain anonymous journalist who grew up in Lebanon when it was ravaged by war, there was a very disturbing show that she watched that had some particularly uptight morals, which it would force on children with fear tactics and graphic imagery. The most disturbing part of all was the ending scene, where the camera would zoom in on a large, rusted metal door. As the camera got closer and closer, screams became audible. Then Arabic text faded in, which said, "Where Bad Kids Go." The journalist decided to investigate the program and eventually tracked down the studio where the show was recorded. Upon arriving, she saw that the studio was completely desolate, as it had been abandoned long ago. While exploring the abandoned studio, she came across the familiar door, and upon opening it, she was horrified to find human remains scattered across the room. Amidst it all was a microphone, hanging from the ceiling. This creepypasta is so creepy I can't even begin to explain it. It's based on the whole idea of using fear tactics to get kids to do what you say, and let's face it, we've all been there. Every kid was told about some evil character who will get them if they misbehave, like Krampus, the Christmas demon. No? Just me? Anyhow, there are two major things that make this story particularly scary. First off is the idea that people are actually okay with using terror to force their moralistic ideals on children. Second, what sets this one apart from other such stories is that it's in hindsight. While other stories like this use fear tactics by saying that this is still going on, this one says that it's in the past, making it so much more believable, as the monstrous punishments no longer exist, making this story seem like it's not for intimidation purposes, but rather to tell of the atrocities. This is another one of those local TV station creepypastas, along with 1999 and Candle Cove, but to me, this one is the very best. It remains realistic and gritty, while also having a more ominous and chilling atmosphere than any other due to its institutionalized atrocities. To say the least, you should give this one a read. This one goes to the mysterious mythical being known as the Slenderman. He's arguably the most famous creepypasta of all time, and he can be found all over the internet. Slenderman is described as wearing a black suit with a white shirt and tie. He has no visible face and is possibly covered up by gauze or cloth, but most disturbing are his unnaturally long arms and legs, which can stretch to inhuman lengths. He also seems to have long black tentacles protruding from his back, which he seems to be able to retract at will. He's known to stalk his victims, particularly children, often making them go paranoid by purposely revealing himself to strike fear into their hearts. When he goes in for the kill, he'll outstretch his tentacles and arms, mesmerizing the victim and luring them in toward him. He can be seen in many photographs, often in public areas. Those who are seen in pictures with him usually disappear not long after. There have been many historical references to the Slenderman, including very early Brazilian cave paintings, German woodcuts, and English mythology. He's been known by many different names, including the Tall Man, the Branch Man, and the Tree Man. However, each legend generally says that he lurks around the forest at night and can often blend into his surroundings. Today, he's generally known to stay in suburban areas, particularly in the woods, and there have been many sightings. There have been many pop culture references to the Slenderman, including the aptly named Endermen in Minecraft, who look and act quite similarly. There's also a series of videos by the name of Marble Hornets, which details a college film crew's encounters with the Slenderman. Finally, a game by the name of Slender, the 8 Pages, was made in 2012, where you play as an unknown character roaming around the forest trying to find 8 pages while avoiding Slendy. I don't even know where to start with this creepypasta. Slenderman is a huge part of internet culture, and is actually a very prominent horror icon. His intimidating appearance and eerie behavior makes him a very mysterious and frankly chilling character. He has no official origin story, but is rather a mysterious mythical being that seems to have existed for hundreds of years. This gives much more scare value simply because you always feel his presence. You find yourself peering over your shoulder every once in a while just to make sure he isn't there. Oh boy, this one. The story is known as Ben Drowned, and I'll explain the name's meaning in a bit. This is the story of a guy who gets a sketchy, possibly bootleg copy of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask from an old man at a yard sale. All the old man said was that it belonged to a kid who didn't live there anymore. When he took the game home to play it, he found only one save file under the name Ben. He initially began playing on the other save file, but became annoyed when some of the NPCs started calling him Ben instead of Link, his save file. When he tried to fix the problem by deleting the Ben save file, he basically opened Pandora's box. As he continued playing, the game kept getting creepier and glitchier, and he began playing the Song of Healing in reverse. All sorts of creepy stuff was happening, including the laughter of the happy mask salesman, the statue following him, and various other strange things. He didn't record footage until the 4th day of playing, so unfortunately this footage was taken after many of the initial glitches took place. Even weirder than the glitches was the fact that the save files kept changing to communicate with the player, eventually revealing that Ben, the original owner of the game, drowned. The game continued to terrorize the player, sending very ominous messages and tormenting him. It also coined the phrase, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" I just can't help but love this one. While not particularly thought-provoking, it's very cleverly made and includes a lot of footage. The whole story is classic, but much like Pokemon Black version, it also uses your sense of nostalgia against you, as many of us remember growing up with Majora's Mask. What makes this one so scary is the actual footage. The music is very unsettling, and the statue is really creepy. There's not much else I can say about it. Ben Drowned just has a really strange charm to it. This is a really long creepypasta, and because of that, I can't explain the entire thing. But give this one a read. This is one of the scariest and most intriguing creepypastas I've ever read, and it can really get a good scare out of you. Just read at your own risk. This is it. It's a creepypasta that embodies all that I love about them. It's shocking, it's deep, and it has many interpretations. Ladies and gentlemen, my number one creepypasta is The Russian Sleep Experiment. This story follows a disturbing scientific experiment conducted on Soviet political prisoners in the 1940s. The subjects were kept in a sealed chamber where they were given everything they needed to survive. The chamber was then filled with an experimental gas, preventing the subjects from ever falling asleep. It sounds a lot like Nova 6, except this stuff is a lot more fun. I'll tell you, never let the Soviet Union play around with experimental gas. But I digress. The scientists would then observe the subjects for many days as they became more and more sleep deprived. Everything started off fine. The subjects seemed content enough and they had fairly normal conversations. But at the 5-day mark, things started to get strange. The subjects began to show signs of paranoia and they stopped interacting with each other. At the 9-day mark, one of the subjects began constantly yelling at the top of his lungs, eventually rendering himself mute. Strangely enough, the other test subjects seemed not to care. As the test subjects became more and more insane, they began to love their life without sleep, and became addicted to the gas in the same way that one becomes addicted to crack. On the 15th day, the chamber was opened, allowing fresh air back in. The researchers found only 4 to be alive, and all were covered with self-inflicted wounds. As the doctors attempted to operate on the 4 surviving test subjects, they showed complete apathy toward pain and self-preservation. At this point, there were only 2 surviving test subjects, one of them mute due to his unending screaming on day 9. The only thing they seemed to want was to stay awake. After the scientists attempted surgery, the commanding office demanded that they put the test subjects back in the chamber. Reluctantly, they complied, and placed the subjects back in the chamber with the gas. When the commanding officer ordered for 3 of the scientists to be sealed in the chamber with the test subjects, one of the scientists immediately shot the commander and the mute subject, leaving only 1 test subject alive. The scientist, pistol in hand, asked, "What are you?" to the final test subject. The subject smiled and replied, "Have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go into the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread. The scientist then shoots the final subject. His dying words were so nearly free. This is what I consider to be the scariest and most thought-provoking creepypasta ever conceived. Much like Where Bad Kids Go, it's in the past and in a place quite far away, making the story much more believable. Knowing the Soviet Union and the way they treated political prisoners, this story actually sounds like it could be a real Soviet experiment. Furthermore, the concept of sleep holding in your insanity is really disturbing, but quite thought-provoking. Are we all just animalistic monsters who hide their insanity through sleep and dreams? Where does civility come from, and what makes us lose it? Finally, it creates a very nightmare-like atmosphere where the test subject's actions are completely unpredictable, and those conducting the experiment soon lose their civility the further along the test goes. This may not be the author's original intent, but like any art, it's open to many interpretations.